Okay, you're good.
We're good?
Everything you say now is memory.
All right. Welcome to the main meeting of the Ward's Corner Civic League. I'm Chris DeFama. Welcome. Let's start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. All right, we, believe it or not, have a pretty good meeting going here today. So we will start tonight as usual with our resource officer, Officer Tomko.
Hello, everybody. I'm Tomko
You can-
again, if you guys weren't here
You can
last
take the
week.
podium if you'd like.
Okay. I don't want to be too close to this microphone. I'm Officer Tomko. Again, Officer Toth is back, but I think you guys are stuck with me, so shouldn't be too bad, right?
No, it's the other way around, right?
We're a tag team in the red sector right now, so I have a
We
few
knew what
civic
was
leagues.
happening.
Yeah, so, but it's all good. I'm gonna dive right into it. Larcenies were pretty high this month. It's not looking good. There were 7 total incidents. Most of them were on the north side of Little Creek, West Little Creek and Granby. So mainly on Birmingham, excuse me, and Westmere. There was one on Burley, but most of them were on Westmere. The vehicles were unlocked, so you can't blame them. These guys are walking through. I'll say this every time they walk through. They pull door handles. When your car's unlocked, they're going to go through it regardless. And if they see something they like in the car, they're going to smash the window out.
Oh.
So don't leave valuables in the car. Anything that looks good, gold chains, watches, laptops, guns.
This is the statistics here are April, right?
Yeah, last 30 days. Yep. The last 30 days. Yeah. We had 2 vehicle thefts. The vehicles were unlocked. It's a little odd on this one. They can't find the keys to the car. Usually that means that they left it in the car, but sometimes people say they have the keys accounted for. It's a little odd. So that very well could be just they left the key in the car, which is very common. Does anybody here have a Kia or a Hyundai by chance?
Mm-hmm.
What year is it?
2017, and I really appreciate that the police gave out the clubs. I went there and picked one up.
I have some today. Yeah, the wheel locks.
Uh-huh.
Oh, so you already got one.
The
Yeah.
steering wheel lock.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, mine's an 11, but I park a truck behind it.
Well, it's up to you if you'd like one. I just need some information from you.
Yeah, I'll take it. Oh, well.
Okay. I'll speak with you in just a second after I'm done here. Does anybody else have a Kia or a Hyundai at all? They would like we're only doing the wheel locks for Kia and Hyundai owners right now. Nobody else. I'm sorry. So,
They have a high incidence.
yeah, we're having most of the problems are with Kias and
They had it
Hyundais.
on TikTok.
TikTok.
With the thing.
yeah, it's pretty interesting how they do it, but
Yeah.
they
Let's
take
do
an
it all
iPhone
over
charger
TikTok.
and somehow get on the ignition and steal your car. It's only a certain year though, of Kia and Hyundais.
What year?
I want to say it's 2007 to like 17, I think, or 16. Something like that.
And-
My girlfriend has a 2016 Accent.
Oh yeah, yep. So yeah. Yep. So we had the stolen vehicles, a larceny from autos. There were 2 burglaries. Can't say that one today. A residential and a commercial. The residential, I guess you'll classify as a burglary, but the guy had a party and he had a friend over. They got in an argument, and the friend stole something from the house. So that's a little, it's not like it was just some random person walking down the street and terrorizing someone's house. So that's kind of good, I guess you could say. The other one was, yeah, there's some good in that one, I guess. The other one was a commercial burglary at, I think it's this address, Newport Avenue, 7300 Newport. It was a little odd though, reading the report. I'm going to have to call the officer tomorrow, but a door was left unlocked. This is 7300, right?
This is business?
What's that?
This is a business?
Yeah, it's commercial.
Oh, so it was on these grounds maybe?
Yeah, someone left a door unlocked somewhere open, and
Oh.
somebody walked in and sold $20 from the register. So, yeah, but I don't know exactly where that was here. It just says 7300 block of Newport Avenue. So, other than that, no violent crimes, which is great, but the larcenies are pretty significant this month. So, it's important to keep that in mind. Does anybody have any questions or concerns for me?
I do. You
Yes, ma'am.
have any reports on gangs and are any gangs involved in stealing these cars?
There's a few of these little homegrown gangs, like the Spaz gang is a popular one. The thing with gangs in Norfolk is like, you know, if you grew up on Oak Grove, you know, you can start the Oak Grove gang. Like, there's so many small gangs of kids in the city. I guess you'd classify it as a gang, but it's really just a bunch of knuckleheads hanging out together.
Yeah.
You know, so. But yes, they are definitely involved.
All the pictures we see are 2 or 3 men or boys.
Most of it's boys, like 11 years old to like 17. Yeah. We've had some 9-year-olds in cars. Yeah. It's wild.
I don't understand parents, you don't check their kids.
Yeah.
Especially
Me neither.
boys.
Yep. So. Any other questions or concerns for me?
Really?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to thank you for the police department as a whole. I've seen a couple of cars stopped for speeding, so
Good.
congratulations.
On Newport? We're at.
Over on Granby.
Granby, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Travis been on Granby a lot and Tidewater.
They
So,
can hit 90 over there.
yeah. I'm sure they can. I've seen some hundreds too, from Officer Welko. He shows, yeah. Yeah, so. Yep. All right. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I brought it up last month about this. I'm down at 7800 block of West Mill Road. What's the dead end? Car that lives behind Arbor Points. Dead end. I'm near the dead end to the left. Full car comes in and out. You can hear him wham, his engine. Leave it all the way down to Grantham, probably on the other side of the Norfolk Road. I don't hear him as much
Okay.
between 10 and 2 in late evening, early morning.
Mhm.
I still feel in the afternoon. So
What kind of vehicle is it?
it's I don't know the exact make. I'm sorry, but I gave you the license plate last month.
Was this off of not Naval Base Road?
No. This is there off in West Mill Road. Near the dead end, right at the dead end, and then
Right.
to the left of the back of the corner apartments.
Okay.
Yeah, he lives back.
Do you have my cell phone number?
I believe so.
Okay.
You wait, I'll just make sure I have.
Yeah, I'll see you in a second.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
And before I go to, ma'am, if you wanted that wheel lock, is your key here now? No.
It's on Sunday, it's not here. No.
Oh, it's not?
It's at the-
Okay. Do you have, I just need the make, model, and license plate number. Do you have that by chance?
How about
All right, I'm gonna go to the car and get one, bring it to you, and then if you can just text me that
Okay,
information.
I will.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll probably get fired if I don't do the right stuff for this,
Yeah,
so.
that's right.
Yeah.
If I could, because she is here.
Sure, yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just give you my business card and you just text me the information. All right. Any other questions? No?
Any
Yes, sir.
progress on the gunshots that I see on my phone every day?
Progress as far as what are we
Catching
talking about?
those who are firing their guns all over the city here.
Well, we caught one today at Target. There was a guy by Target, or yesterday. That was a mess because they said it was an active shooter. So they locked Target down.
Are
What?
they just wearing their weapon or what do you?
Sometimes they're just shooting for fun, or they're trying to clean their gun, or we get a lot of incidences where people shoot themselves in the leg quite often. So, which is a crime. So, yep. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thank you very much,
Thanks,
officer.
guys.
We'll see you next month. You're gonna come to the ice cream social, right?
What's that?
You come to the ice cream social, right?
What day is that?
It-
I think I got an email from you for that. Yeah. What time? 6 p.m.?
No,
6:30? Is it gonna be here?
It'll be at Norfolk, Norfolk and
Okay. Yeah, I'll be there.
very cool.
I'll be right back with those remarks.
All right, Ms. Williams is not here yet, Ms. Williams Graves. So we will have, you want to go first? Or should I let Kyle go? Okay, we have Kyle Spencer from the Office of Resiliency with the City of Norfolk, and he's got a presentation for us. Kyle, you have the floor.
This is actually not Kyle, but
Yeah, oh, that's right. What's your
Kyle
name
was
again?
supposed to be here.
My name is Matt Fangella. I'm with the City Manager's Office of Resilience. I'm coastal engineer, project manager. I work for Kyle. Kyle is our director, and he has been out on the road the last 2 weeks. He was in San Francisco at the Chief Resilience Officers Conference. He's the Chief Resilience Officer for the city, and he was also down in Carolina, Raleigh last week at the Association of State Floodplain Managers National Conference, receiving an award on behalf of the city. So I am pinch hitting for him tonight, just to give him a break. He just came in from out of town, and just giving him some relief. But we're here to talk about the project, so I'll pull up the PowerPoint and we'll get going. Just a 10 to 15 minute overview of what we have going on in the works with the Norfolk CSRM project. You may have seen some of it in the local news. So I will stand here just so you guys can see the screen. It looks pretty good. Can everybody see it pretty well?
Good.
Awesome. Thank you everybody for the tech help, projector and everything. Works great. So the name of our project is the Norfolk Coastal Storm Risk Management. We've worked with a team of communications consultants to brand it as Resilient Norfolk. And so the overview of the project is, I think as we all know, the city of Norfolk is at risk of flooding from coastal storms, hurricanes, things like that. It has one of the highest rates of sea level rise in the country. And the Norfolk Coastal Storm Risk Management Project, or CSRM, we refer to it as that, will reduce the city's risk from the coastal flooding and damage from nor'easters, hurricanes, and other significant storm events. And this is a unique project. It's the first time in the country where we've gotten out ahead of the storm to do a project to protect the city. Traditionally, the model has been a storm comes, such as like Hurricane Katrina down in Louisiana, Harvey down in Houston, destroys everything and then rebuild. And so we're trying to get ahead of things and protect what we have prior to, quote, the big one coming. So the next graphic you can see is our inundation map. So the blue area represents area that would be underwater in 2075 and without the project. So when it cycles to the blue, if we did nothing and left the city as it is today, all that blue area would be inundated. Then this,
in the blue area?
yeah. Then this red line here, that's the flood wall project and the Lafayette surge barrier. So that line of protection, you also have a surge barrier up here at Pretty Lake. So this line of protection, that flood wall and surge barrier system, protects all this part of the city when the conditions are in 2075. So it kind of emphasizes and highlights the significance of this project in the overall big picture. We talk about building resilience, so reducing the risk from coastal flooding and significant storm events, just like we talked about. And then just some kind of pictures of things that we've seen every day here in Norfolk, in some big storms, rainstorms, hurricanes, nor'easters, et cetera, over the years. So the project at a glance is $2.6 billion. It consists of storm surge barriers, nearly 8 miles of flood walls, 1 mile of levees, 11 tide gates, 10 pump stations, home elevations, basement fills, and commercial flood proofing. So what we kind of have it divided up as is our structural program, which would be what you see, storm surge barriers through the pump stations, and then the non-structural program, home elevations, basement fills, and commercial flood proofing. So we'll get into what that means, but the structural program, those are physical measures you would see, like a wall or a levee, and the non-structural would be a home elevation. And it's kind of confusing because, like, hey, my house is a structure, right? Like, what are you talking about? But the idea being is that there's not a structural flood protection measure there. We're elevating the home itself. The importance of the pump stations, we're familiar with pump stations in Norfolk a lot with our utilities, but the issue is these are stormwater pump stations, kind of like we have downtown by the Wisconsin. And so if you build a wall, you now have created kind of like this swimming pool. So the stormwater system that's gravity drained out needs to be pumped out and over that wall to drain. So everything has to run to the pump station, big high powered pumps in that pump station pushes that water out and over the wall.
To be clear, not all the pump stations that we see throughout are stormwater. Most of them are sewage, right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah,
that's with the sanitary sewer line,
right.
And to treatment ultimately to an HRSD plant. So this would be treating, pumping precipitation. So we talked about the project features. Structural are the constructive measures to counteract coastal flooding. You kind of think of that flood wall structure. And then property-specific non-structural. So home elevations, basement fills, and flood proofing of commercial structures. And then natural and nature-based features. In our non-structural program, we've evaluated several homes across the city. And we have just shy of 1,000 homes and also commercial businesses identified in that program. So kind of working on fleshing out that list and doing some field assessments to making sure that field conditions line up with computer models and things like that. I think this is our video slide, which, was there audio?
Great question.
No, there's not going to be through that club.
Okay.
If you can get it on your computer, that's the best you can do.
Do you know how to set that up?
No, I do not.
Well, what we can do is, if you want to go to resilientnorfolk.com,
Do you have closed captioning?
maybe
can send it out too. Yeah.
I can send you the link. But if you go to resilientnorfolk.com, it's kind of a nice 2-minute video. Kind of explains the project, some nice snapshots of the city, and gives a nice overview of the video. I highly recommend you check it out. We work closely with our consultant to develop the video, and it's a good resource that you could just direct people to. Is kind of, hey, what's a 2-minute deal with this? I will send it out to you guys.
So you didn't have that, all right.
So risk reduction features in the flood wall. So getting into some of the more detailed, we have the levee, which is a man-made earthen embankment. You can kind of think of it as a hill. We talk about a levee, that's what that looks like. Again, just kind of divert that water. You'll see the plan is to include some of those around the Harbor Park, Elizabeth River Trail area. You can see in that example, there's a trail on top of that levee. Again, we work closely with our consultants to develop these models to give everyone in the public an understanding. The bin wall and the T-wall. So the T-wall refers to this, you see the wall is above the surface, and then it has sheet piling and this concrete footer beneath. And so that forms a T. And so as the water comes in, that upside down T structure protects against wave action, barge impact, or any impacts to this wall, water or otherwise, gives a structural load. And then you have these columns and pilings running downward like that, supporting this as the foundation system. The bin wall has a similar feature. You can see pilings down here, but the bin wall kind of has this promenade on top. It kind of looks like a boardwalk. That's the plan that we've come up with waterside area, so you still kind of keep that view and that bin wall, and then you can see that structural support of the wall is actually here as it pops up, kind of steps down, so a different feature there.
How high is the portion above ground?
So the everything is constructed to an elevation of 16.5 feet. So kind of if you drew a line at 16.5 feet, right, that'd be your line. And then the actual elevation of how much wall you see kind of depends on the ground elevation at that point.
16.5 feet from sea level?
Sea level, yes.
Okay. So it's going to vary over the ground.
Right.
Depending on
right. How mountainous your ground is.
And how much of the T-wall and the bin wall should we see? Well, I mean, how much of any of that should we see?
Again, it's going to vary at various points.
Various locations?
Based on...
Did that map show that?
No, it didn't.
Okay.
Think of the wall in front of the Wisconsin, at least a couple feet taller than that in that location.
Right.
Okay.
Probably taller than us.
Yeah.
Again, risk reduction features. So the gate, most of the gates are going to be that sliding type. We actually took a trip up to Richmond. Richmond has an extensive flood wall constructed by the Army Corps, and got some lessons learned and looked at some of the features with Richmond city staff. Very insightful. The pump station. Not sure if you can see this graphic in the back, but again, you can see you have the water draining with those blue arrows. They're hard to make out just here, so you may not be able to see them. The water comes into the pump station. This is called a wet well. It fills up and then again pumps out and discharges behind the wall. And then here's our natural nature-based features. So oyster reefs, levees, living shorelines, things like that at various points. And then kind of our non-structural program, right? So property-specific non-structural. So the home is elevated. You can see this lower portion here, the different color, that's elevation. There's steps coming up to it. And then our critical infrastructure. So flood-proofing, critical infrastructure. Example, the facilities receiving that is Fire Station 8 in Berkeley. These flood panel walls, when the elevation reaches to a certain point, when the fire department can't respond anymore, when it's about 2 feet up to the center of the hub of the fire truck, they will close up shop, relocate, respond from another area, and put up these stop block panels. So protecting critical infrastructure such that It is protected from the flood, and then when floodwaters recede, everybody can return and conduct operations out of there, and that facility is not impacted.
You know what? The property specific raising of homes, is that on the homeowner, or certain homes are going to be eligible for this?
Certain homes are going to be eligible, and it'll be a cost of the project, so the homeowner is not responsible for the actual work.
What about the houses that I already see, like in Larchmont, that have this? Is this part of this project, or is that?
No,
They want,
nothing with this project has been conducted
but
yet,
was
but
it part of a?
that's part of, some homeowners have went and done it on their own,
Okay.
and then there's also a FEMA program, and Daniel Hudson in our emergency management department, he oversees that program along with Matt Simons, our deputy regional director now. Matt came from the planning department, and they are very humble, very good experts, and they're experts in the region on home elevations and stuff. But yeah, so that would be like the technique that's involved in this, but it's not part of this project, but that's the exact idea. Yes.
Does that mean the storm drain systems are gonna be connected into this?
When you say that, like connected into the pump stations?
Yeah.
Yes, the ones that are within the drainage area behind the wall. It's not to say though that the whole storm drain system is going to be upgraded, because that's the Public Works Stormwater Department, and well, that's a capacity issue as well. That's not included in this project. But yes, they're going to have to be connected because right now they're gravity draining out, and they're going to have to, if they're behind the wall, if that drainage area is behind the wall, it's going to have to go that pump station to get up and over in the post-project environment.
Oh, second question would be, how assured are you that you're going to have power to the pumping stations for the storm systems that go through here?
Correct. So, one, they'll receive electrical power, and we'll have to upgrade those, and they'll also have backup generators for redundancy in the case of a power outage, which is inevitable with a hurricane.
The reason I bring that up is because we're still thinking about whether we're going to build any more of these windmills out here at sea.
Right.
And whether or not we're going to have fuel system to be able to run any generators.
Right.
So that's just issues that got to be in the mix.
Right. And I know VDOT has upgraded a lot of their generators on the interstate to natural gas. Yes.
How is this going to be paid for?
Sure. So we're getting to that. The breakdown is it's a 65%, 35% cost share. So the federal government pays for 65%, and we were awarded about $400 million in the energy infrastructure bipartisan bill, and then the remaining 35% is a match. So that's the city's responsibility to come up with that funding. There's some talk of, we recently received a grant in the amount of $24 million from this Community Flood Preparedness Fund. It's a Department of Conservation and Recreation fund from the state. So, the city is on the hook for that 35% match, coming up with it without using federal dollars, but the federal dollars cover the 65% of that cost.
And you're talking about a 50-year window, basically.
So the project itself is 10 years in total. We'll get to the timeline in a minute. And great questions. Everybody's getting ahead. And then the project itself is to protect us to 2075.
So if I can jump on the political side of this, we've got elections coming up in November. Every single house in this General Assembly is up for re-election. We need the state to help fund our 35% portion of this. So every one of those candidates that comes in here, we need to make sure that we're asking them if they're going to make sure that they go to Richmond and lobby to make sure that we get help funding this. Because this is the difference between us having to sit around and wait for a New Orleans type situation where a city is ruined and we build back, or we build the wall first and we don't ever have that. We have to make sure we sell that. So the feds are in. The feds are great. They're in for 65%. We've got to get the state now to help.
Exactly.
Sorry.
No, great point. And we want to get that money too, because Army Corps works on project money. So if there's no money, they're not going to work on this. We have them working. We have them moving forward. We want to keep that momentum and keep cranking. The last thing we do is want to have them stop, put the project on the shelf, focus elsewhere as we get our funding together. So that's a great point. Also, how are we on time? I'm on slide 13 of 30.
You're okay.
Okay.
We're missing one of our presenters, so go ahead.
Okay. So the property specific non-structural, we kind of talked about that. You can see an example of a before and after. This was in the city of Norfolk. Again, not part of this project in the FEMA project, but gives you an idea of what that looks like before and after. Another one there. Natural.
Oh, man.
Natural and nature-based features. Again, we talked about the living shoreline, oyster reefs, things like that. This is actually a drone shot out of Ohio Creek. There's a big project going on there. Kyle Spencer is leading that flood protection project. Levee, living shorelines, things like that. Our contractor out there takes out weekly drone videos and shares the progress with Kyle.
Ohio, what is this?
Ohio Creek, Chesterfield Heights area. What would that be? Just east of Campostella.
Right.
That was a $120 million grant.
Mhm.
Yes.
We received for that.
And then, so implementation phases, this is what we were talking about. There were some questions. So there'll be 5 implementation phases, and we branded this project kind of with the color coding. So you can see orange is the downtown area, 2 is Pretty Lake, 3 is the Lafayette Surge Barrier, 4 is Broad Creek, and then 5 is the non-structural program. It's that pink hashing. And it's kind of a misnomer because the non-structural program, we'll get to the timeline, but the non-structural program will be going on simultaneously with all these other phases. So we'll show the timeline, and then we've kind of focused in on the final part of this presentation on the Lafayette Surge Barrier, since that would be the main flood protection project that of this whole overall project that be protecting most of the community that's here tonight. So the project timeline you're asking, so you can see this. So the color represents design, and then the gray bar represents construction. So as you can see, construction on phase 1A, that's Berkeley Bridge to Campostella, the flood wall there, kind of wrapping around from Berkeley Bridge down Harbor Park and tying in behind Campostella intersection overpass. That we're currently in design. We have phase 1A, and we just received 65% design plans from Army Corps. I led a big open house last week, inviting other city departments in to provide comments. Everybody from Public Works, Transit, Fire Rescue, providing input on the plans. Wrapping those up and getting them over to Army Corps by the end of the month, and then progressing on the next design milestone, which would be 90%. So you can see design of phase 1A continues through 23, and this timeline is a little outdated. Right now, we're targeting about mid-2024 to break ground on construction on that phase 1A. And then, as you can see, late 2023, start design on 1B, 1C starts, design in 25, et cetera, all the way down. And you can see as we move through the project, there's going to be, phases that overlap. The Pretty Lake Surge Barrier, design on that starting in mid-24, so you'd be in construction in 1A at the time. You'll be designing 1B, you'll be designing Pretty Lake, and then in the meantime, we have the non-structural program running kind of simultaneously in the background as these other phases are occurring. Any questions on this slide before we move on?
When you were showing the naval base, does the naval base have, do they get part of our cut here?
No, they don't.
They don't.
And
is that all on their own?
So here's the Navy
Okay,
base.
thank you.
If you go back to the inundation map,
Okay.
you can see the Navy base never changes, right? It's
Right.
always blue.
I
If you
was
focus
wondering
just on
about
that.
that.
So the reason being is that at the time of the study by Army Corps that led to this project, Army Corps has kind of 2 arms: the Civil Works Division, which funds things like dredging and flood walls and things like that, and then their military construction of MILCON, which funds military projects. And the Army Corps cannot spend Civil Works dollars on military bases or other federal property, so the Navy base was left off. A fun fact that kind of further complicates things is Virginia Beach is in the middle of a similar study, but a couple years behind. And there's been some changes in federal regulation that have allowed them to include Oceana. And so that is included in there. So if you hear about that project or see that, you're going to see that. You're like, hey, what are you talking about? So the regulations changed since then. There's been talk about how the naval station could be included, but that would be a high-level discussion and is not currently on the table.
Good.
and something that'd be well above my pay grade.
Right.
So back here, project timeline, and then the implementation phases. So the Lafayette is that blue area. If we go back to the map, so the idea is to construct a surge barrier basically here from Lambert's Point Coal Pier up to from Lambert's Point Coal Pier area up to NIT, Norfolk International Terminals across there, and it would consist of several gates, which would close in the event of a storm or bad weather, things like that. I'm not expecting them to close that frequently, right?
Right.
Just kind of as the need arises. And again, if you go back to our timeline, this phase, really and truly, all it is right now is kind of the line on the map, the overall idea. It's not even going to design until mid-25, is currently scheduled. But that is the idea. And I mean, honestly, I think all of us have agreed working on the project. That's probably one of the most complicated phases of the entire project. And it is one of the most costly, trying to tie in, figure where we're going to tie into, NIT side and then the Lambert's Point side, the old Lambert's Point landfill golf course area, that area. But you can see that is very important structurally because that protects, a big portion of the city there in the blue area. So that's to come. Again, it's not even started design yet, but that is the protection for this area, and preventing that storm surge risk and things like that into the Lafayette River watershed. Project funding, we kind of talked about this, but this is kind of broken down for phase 3 specifically. So you can see location, Norfolk, Virginia, Lafayette, outer surge barrier system. The phase 3 cost is $814,300,000. Total cost to CSRM system is $2.6 billion, 65%, 35% match. We talked about the benefit cost ratio, non-federal matching funds provided by the city in phase 3 and versus all phases. And, the non-federal matching funds requested of the Commonwealth of Virginia, the state, like Vice Mayor spoke about, phase 3 versus all phases. So again, both by kind of portion, complexity, and funds, cost. Phase 3, that Lafayette surge barrier, is very complex and our most expensive and biggest, most complex piece.
Just a quick question. How much is the city going to need for this portion here?
This portion says phase 3, the non-federal matching funds provided by the city of Norfolk, $142,500,000.
Okay, thank you.
And the request of the Commonwealth is $142,500,000. And then again, the $2.6 billion number, that number has escalated from this study. It was at 1.8, and construction materials have gone up, steel, concrete, labor, fuels. So again, that number, right? You may check the website in 6 months and then it says 2.7. Who knows? Wrapping up, any questions, concerns, thoughts? Yes.
How is that wall going to impact the voting?
The voting. So currently, the gates will be in the open position on most days, and then the channel will remain open. And then when a storm comes, there'd be some announcement, kind of like we do downtown. We're closing the gates, and so the gates would close and then open, after the storm based on elevation, water levels, things like that. But we would want to maintain navigation, as much as possible.
Are the gates between Lambert's Point and NIT, are they going to be underwater?
Yes, the foundations will, and then they'd be open. So
how about ships that go back and forth?
Right. So
The channel.
so the channel would be maintained, and then the gate would, it's kind of like, think of like on a basic level, like a fence in your backyard, right? And gates closed normally, it's open when you slide your riding lawnmower through or something like that. And again, I mean, those are details that we need to work through in the design. What is the maximum size ship that needs to pass? What is the draft? What is the depth of the channel? All those factors are going to have to go into that design. And like we said, very complex.
We're talking about the southern tip of the NIT. Right. Okay. So in other words, that portion that you can actually see from what do you call it? The Hermitage, right, exactly.
Right.
So I don't think we have many ships coming in.
So
from
the,
there.
the, the gates, the gates would not, if you go back to the map, NIT itself is that hatched area,
Right.
and that's gonna be a key here, that's gonna be receiving non-structural protection measures. The gates wouldn't be, the Lafayette Surgery would connect from that tip of NIT down to here, but it would not be, NIT would not be behind the gate. And for that exact reason.
I think it's hard to see from back there, but it's not this line here. Okay?
Right.
It's right here.
The
And from
yellow
there to
line is
there.
the city limit, and that blue line is there. And again, we'll send out the project website, and this figure is there too, and you can check it out. Yes.
Did they project the city of Norfolk's gonna be able to come up with the amount of money that they would need to contribute, or are we hoping to get the state to pony up for most of it?
So the city council has been very generous, and in the first 2 years has awarded us $35 million in the CIP, and after that, still working on those details. The idea is that we hope to request from the state vice mayor 50% of the project, of our 35% match. In an ideal world, we hope to request to the state to help us with half of that 35%, is the goal.
That's why I'm saying we've got to ask our state representatives, if we're going to vote for them, they've got to be on board with going to Richmond and lobbying to make sure that we get funding for this. This is going to take 10 years to construct. This is not something where you can say, hey, Martin, you're in office now, and whoever's in office now in the state, will you commit to do this? This is 10 years of budgets. So we're going to have to keep lobbying every year for 10 years to make sure we get the money to be able to pay for this. And the way this is Martin's personal view, if we don't do this, we're giving up on the city, right? We're basically saying we're just going to wait for the storm to demolish us and we're done. Right. So we have to take that. Again, Norfolk is, I believe, on the bleeding edge, ahead of the storm, if you will. And I'm proud to support it. We just got to figure out how to lobby to get that money to pay for it.
Have we been? I'm assuming you guys are also talking with Newport News, Portsmouth, especially all the ports. My big thing is if the ports are not working, that's where our money's coming in. That's where we're sending out our goods. Goods are coming in, and I would possibly, talking to you, Martin, leaning on the business side of the house and saying, "Hey, this is for your better, for your keep your jobs, keep your companies here." If not, everything's just like I said, just gonna get hit.
Yeah, the way I explain it to our representatives in Richmond is I remind them that Hampton Roads is the work engine of the state, right? And so they need the military, they need the ports, they need all of us to be able to get to those entities to work. And so that's a part of the explanation why this is extremely important.
Let's maybe explain that to our brethren upstate and out west, because supplies are coming from here.
That's right. That's right.
Your coal is going on.
Yes.
I have one other question on this thing is it's one thing to build something, it's another thing to maintain it.
Correct.
That's got to be figured in there as well.
So the way it works is the city is responsible for procuring the real estate, the utilities, and doing all necessary environmental assessment and, if needed, cleanup. Right. Some of the areas, like there's some real nasties out there from just historic use. So that's the city's responsibility, and we're working on getting those assessments done and utility relocations and things like that. The Army Corps constructs the project with their contractor, and then at the end of the project, they turn it over to the city to maintain in perpetuity, and there'll be an easement across the whole alignment. Again, similar like what we have out at Nauticus, Wisconsin area, the wall closes. And our stormwater operations staff, we work very closely with them. And when a storm comes, they're responsible for closing the gates. The amount of gates that they're going to have to close once this is constructed is going to increase tenfold. And there's talk of having staff, probably all hands on deck effort. Storms coming, we're out closing gates. Some of them have to be pushed with heavy equipment, bobcat, front end loader, things like that to get those gates closed. They're very wide. Especially ones like coming across the railroad track there at the Amtrak station. You're gonna have large 35-foot gates that have to be pushed with a front loader. So we've worked closely with the operations crew at Public Works who close those gates and their managers, and they're very involved with the design process. We talk to them daily. They're with me on the site visit to Richmond, and we talked a lot with the Richmond staff about the swing gate versus the slide gate and things, lessons learned, the gasket at the bottom of the gate over time. As you mill and pave the road, and that, you mill the road, then it gets paved half an inch thicker or something. Now your gate is off. So, all these things that, you have to be aware of and things go on. But the city will be responsible for maintenance, and we're already talking and involving in the design process the crews who maintain both the current infrastructure as well as will be responsible for this. But great.
We know a little bit about that after flooding our tunnel down.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
So, any other questions?
Very good, Matt.
Thank you.
very much.
Thanks for the
Is
opportunity.
this presentation available online on the site, on the residency site?
I don't think this presentation itself, it was custom made for this meeting, but most of this information
The
is
content.
the graphics, the contents,
great.
things like that.
Thank
And
you
it's
very much.
resilient.norfolk.com.
All right, we'll
Thank
look
you.
for that.
And I'll just leave this connection up here.
That's fine,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Matt.
Angela
Yeah.
Williams-Graves is here.
Yeah, Angela, welcome. You have the floor.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I appreciate you all for accommodating me and this crazy schedule. 'Tis the season to be a clone, and I am not. You all are number 2 on my schedule of 4 for the evening, but thank you again for the opportunity. I am Delegate Angela Williams-Graves, and I currently represent the 90th House District in the Commonwealth of Virginia. That district is about the eastern part of Norfolk and a little bit of Virginia Beach. I am running for the 21st Senate District in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I also represented Super Ward 7, which the Ward's Corner area was included in that area in the boundaries of Super Ward 7. Some of the area out here is kind of a split up area between me, Martin, I think Courtney maybe, because Dr. Whibley had some of it when she was on council. And so we kind of all worked very carefully and closely together to work on the revitalization of this area. I will tell you that I was born and raised here in Norfolk. I am a proud graduate. Anybody know St. Mary's Catholic Church? Yes. Okay.
Sure.
Great. So I'm a graduate of St. Mary's Catholic School, and I begged my parents to let me go to public school, and they consented. And I wanted to be like my brother and sister, and I graduated from Booker T. Washington High School. I'm a graduate of Tidewater Community College and a graduate of Old Dominion University. And so my roots are here. Before being elected to office, I worked for the city of Norfolk. It was a great experience, and I like to say it's where the bug bit me for public service. Prior to that, all of my time had been in either customer service or retail, and it was make more widgets, build more stuff, make more money. Make more widgets, build more stuff, make more money. And when I went to work for the city, it was really the first time that I had a sense of gratification about what we did, because the work that we actually did in the city affected other people. It wasn't about just making more money. And don't get me wrong, I like money, okay? Erica Jane said it's expensive to be me. But I was moved by the fact that what we did every day contributed to the lives of so many other people. And having a father who was a pastor and a mother who was a missionary, it really, really spoke to my heart. So I've worked for the city, did that in the Commissioner of Revenue's office and in the Norfolk Sheriff's office for almost a total of about 10 years. And then I ran for city council in 2010, won that election, ran in 2012 because that was I was finishing a term, won that election 2016, 2020, I won my election in 2020, and then my delegate got appointed to the bench. So he became a judge. Joe Lindsay was my delegate, and he became a judge, yes. And he's also my neighbor. And so in 2020, I ran for the Democratic nomination for the House, won that. The election was a month later, January 5th of 2021, won that election and went into the House of Delegates. Then we ran again in November of 2021 because I was finishing Joe's seat. And now we have an open seat for Norfolk. And all of you have probably heard about redistricting and kind of understand. You kind of get a little bit about how we got here. Yes, no, maybe, yes. Okay, good, 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 good. All right, so we have this open Senate seat, and it encompasses about 95 or so percent of Norfolk, with the exception of about 5 precincts in East Ocean View and Little Creek. It is an all Norfolk Senate seat. The significance of that is that we haven't had an all Norfolk Senate seat probably since John Moss was Speaker of the House. So more than 35 years. Yeah. More than 35 years ago, did we have that? It was before that we had an all Norfolk Senate seat. So right now, what we have is a senator from the Eastern Shore and who represents Norfolk and the Eastern Shore. He's known as a senator from the Eastern Shore. We have a senator who represents Norfolk and Chesapeake. He's known as a senator from Chesapeake. We have a new senator that is got 3 precincts in Norfolk, and the rest of his district is Virginia Beach. He's known as a senator from the Virginia Beach. Guess what we don't have? A senator known as a senator from Norfolk. We haven't had one since the mayor was our senator. He was the last senator from Norfolk because he lived in Norfolk, even though that district included Virginia Beach. So what am I standing for? I'm standing for a woman's right to choose. I believe that women are intelligent, smart, and we are capable of making decisions for ourselves. We are capable of inviting into the decision-making process who we want to be in the decision-making process, and that should not be me or some other elected body telling us what to do with our bodies. I believe that we should have strong gun safety laws. Not only should we have strong gun safety laws, but I also believe that we need to be funding prevention measures. There are a lot of small nonprofits that work within our city, and they don't get the big looks and they don't get the big funding that some of the larger nonprofits do, but they do the work. They're really on the ground, they're really boots in, and they're helping small groups of children, which if you put all of those small groups of children together, you get a big group of kids, right? So I believe that we can fund some of those things through grant funding at the state level, pass it on to the city. The city has done it in many grants for businesses. It would be very easy to do that in many grants for our nonprofits. I also believe in public education. Like I said, I begged to go to public school and I enjoyed the experience. Some of the teachers who were most impactful in my life were at Booker T. And my mom was a public school teacher. And my mom was a teacher when you could still paddle the children. So that's a long time ago. But I believe that we have not fully funded our public education system. 9 of the 10 years that I sat on council, the Republican Party was the majority party in the House and Senate. And what happened there was every single year we got cuts in education funding. Every single year we got cuts in education funding from the state. So you think about your own households. If you make, the idea is to make more money, right? But think about it, if you made less money every year, you would be able to do less things. Some things would be deferred and we'll get to it and we'll get to it and we'll get to it. And next thing you know, you need a bucket because the roof is leaking. And next thing you know, you're walking around and you got a hole in the floor because the foundation is going. That's what has happened to our public schools. So we cannot abandon our public schools and say it's not working when we have not properly and fully funded it at the state level. The last thing I'll say to you that is important to me, and you're talking about flooding, is our environment. The earth is God's gift to us. And we have a responsibility not only to take care of it, but we also have a responsibility to leave it in good condition for the next generation. I see a lot of you who look like you are retired or retiring, or maybe want to retire, right? So one of the things that we have to do is we have to make sure we have to make sure that we have jobs, whether they are green jobs, job training, whether we are working in our workforce development, to have people to replace you. Some folks are working because they, not necessarily because you want to, but you do care about where you work, and you know there's nobody to come along behind you. And so through our economic development and our workforce training, we want to make sure that we're training people for jobs, we're training them for green jobs, and we're also making sure that our state, our Commonwealth, stays in the regional greenhouse gas initiative. So those are some of the things, those are the things that I'm passionate about. Some of the things that I've done. We raised jury duty pay in the Commonwealth of Virginia. If you've ever served on jury duty, it's $30 whole. Woohoo! We raised jury duty pay from $30 a day to $50 a day. I carried that bill last year. It died in appropriations, but I will not be beat. I brought it back this year. I asked for $50 last year and they told me no. So this year I asked for $100. Little psychology, right? And they said, well, we won't give you $100, but will you take 50? Well, that's what I wanted last year. So yes, I'll do that. I'll take 50. That bill passed and it goes into effect on July 1st. I also, any married folks? Married people?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So in Virginia, which is one of a few states where hospitals and medical facilities can come after surviving spouses in the event there's medical debt after their spouse is deceased. So you go into the hospital and you don't come out, not saying they killed you, but you don't come out. And there's debt left over. The insurance didn't pay, or maybe people who were underinsured. Hospitals can go after that surviving spouse to cover or to collect on that medical debt. So if you've left a house that's paid for, a little bit of money in a life insurance or a little bit of money in a nest egg, the last thing that you want it to do is to go to the big nonprofit medical facility that we don't want that. So in Virginia, that was called a list of necessities, and spouses were responsible for it. We got medical debt and healthcare debt taken off the list of necessities. So as of July 1, that will not, that goes away as well. With my vote, we repealed the death penalty. We decriminalized marijuana. We still have some work to do with that, but we decriminalized marijuana. We've done so many good things. One of the other bills I'll tell you about lastly that I'm very, very proud of is a bill to regulate in-home daycare centers and child care centers. In 2020, during COVID, we had 2 kids that died in unregulated child care centers. And the first bill that I passed, that I introduced in 2020, in 2021, it was our COVID year, and we were all on Zoom, was a bill to allow localities to be able to regulate and or license daycare centers with children who had children under 9, because if there were over 9 children, they were already required. But under 9, they could just be out there willy-nilly. And I think that when people take their children somewhere, they need to have some degree of certainty that their children are going to be safe. So now all of our daycare centers, localities have the ability to regulate them and to register them so that we know that they're existing and we can make sure that our little people are being taken care of. That's what I have. I'll take any questions. I've been your councilwoman. I am your delegate, and it would really be my honor to be your state senator. So I'll take any questions. Yes, sir.
I hear everything you're talking about is money, money, money. Okay? Now, don't forget we got, going on $30 trillion of debt. No matter how you want to perform that, that is going to be passed on to our children unless you can come up to $247,000 to pay your share for the debt today.
That is federal debt.
Take that easily.
That is federal debt. That is not state debt. At the state level, it is, but it is not.
Say it's not ours, it's our debt. And you're going to pass it on to our children.
I know. I don't vote on the federal budget. I do not vote on the federal budget. I do not vote on raising the debt limit at the federal level. I don't do that. What I can tell you is that the budget I voted on in 2021 has a surplus. And when you hear about the skinny budget in the newspaper as to how we don't have a budget, we have a little bit of budget amendments that have been passed. We are working in Virginia with a surplus because unlike the federal government, we have to have a balanced budget in Virginia by June 30th in the odd year. So next year we'll vote on a budget and we will have to have passed it and it will have to be balanced. Unlike the federal level, I understand that it is our debt, but what I am not responsible for is voting on that debt. Any other questions?
Yeah, I think I can talk a little bit more before I shut my big mouth. But I have a lot of issues with the overall thought process that we've got here. I mean, we talk about my body. I have to pay for that abortion, part of my tax bill. I don't have any problem with what you do with your body, but don't let me have to pay for it. We've got health care. I paid for my kids' education at $16,400 this year. But I also pay for everybody else's that sends their kids to private school. Now we're gonna, well, I think we ought to forgive everybody's debt that has the college debt. Well, I'm sorry, I can't believe in that either. So, that's the end of my conversation, but.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I received in the mail the literature that you sent out, and then I also received literature from the other candidate, and I talked to a few friends of mine, and we're like, what should we do as far as voting here? And I don't know if maybe you've changed your stand on that, or maybe you just didn't have that in the literature. Those were the big postcards, the big glossy postcards.
Change my stand on what? On
it didn't say anything about women's right to choose on your
yeah,
what I received in the mail.
Yeah, it has been my position from day one.
Really?
And yes, women's right to choose reproductive health care, a woman's right for choice, or it could have said individual rights, because a women's right to choose is an individual right. But that has been my position from day one, and I can tell you it has not been my opponent's. I can tell you that.
I'm a little confused because that's on her literature. It's the first thing it says is the woman's right to choose. On the literature I received in the mail from her, and then from your it didn't talk about it at all. So this is the last couple weeks, so I'm like, I know people are voting based on that information.
I have always been a pro-choice candidate. I always have. It's on my website. It's been on our literature. Some of the pieces that we did send out were introductory pieces, like who is Angela? But a woman's right to choose and reproductive health care has always been a point of mine. I truly believe that if I don't have autonomy over my body, then nothing else matters. And so that has always been, from day one, something that I have been passionate about. Yeah.
It's just the literature I got, I was a little confused.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
You recommend that a woman can have a pregnancy aborted at 8 months or 9 months? Where's the line drawn with you, would you say?
Well, I think that our laws, as they stand right now, protect women and the opportunity as to where they are in their pregnancy to have an abortion. That is a decision that a woman and her doctor are to have to make together, and it is not a decision that I should have any say-so in.
Well, at 8 months or 7 months, would it still be up to the woman?
It's up to the woman and her doctor.
Well, where does the baby have a say in it? 7 months, 8 months, where do they come into as a human being?
I am a pro-choice candidate. I believe that a woman has the right to make a decision about herself and her body, and that decision that she makes should be between her and her doctor and whoever it is that she decides to bring into that.
Right, at 8 months, they're living.
I answered your question.
And I have a question then.
Yes.
Well, going off what you said, the Virginia code, I was reading it, pretty much lets you go up to at least the second trimester. And after that, then it's, it sounds like all bets are off. I see Governor Northam supports you, right? So he was already willing to let the baby be born and then go into, if the mother didn't want it, to be in a comfort setting until it passed. Do you believe that?
I do not. I've had somebody else ask me that question. I believe that if a baby is born and the baby is born and is viable, I believe that medical doctors and nurses and all of that should do everything that they can do to save that child and give that child life. But we differ on that particular opinion.
And if the baby's aborted and it's still alive, shall we kill it?
Oh no! If it's aborted, if it's aborted, it's not alive. If it's born, it's alive. And if it is alive, then a doctor and nurses and all those people should provide the appropriate medical care to try to do everything they can to save that life. That's what I believe. But to your point of 20 weeks, and I really don't like to get into like weeks and months and things of that nature, but anything after that does require 2 doctors' notes. It requires 2 doctors to sign off on the procedure because of healthcare risk to the mother or the child or whatever. Right. That kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I've got 2 minutes left for this.
Yes, sir.
Your issue on guns, gun control.
I put forth 2 bills this session that died, no pun intended, in the Republican-controlled House of Delegates, and there were several bills that passed out of the Democratic-controlled Senate into the Republican-controlled House, and they died as well. I feel like that, number one of the bills I put forth, I'll say, is it was a bill that required a safety training course for individuals who purchased a gun. I can go down to Bob's gun shop or whoever's gun shop, buy a gun, get it all wrapped up, and not know how to use it and shoot myself and kill my own self because I didn't know how to use it. And then the other bill that I put forth was to make mental health care facilities and hospitals in the same posture as schools as it pertains to no gun zones, because our hospitals and mental health care facilities are having to go on lockdown way too many times. We are losing people in healthcare as it is. And so we need to make sure that we provide them with a safe environment. But I don't believe that assault weapons should be the weapons that people, can just go into a store and buy. I just don't believe that. But I do believe that we have to be responsible. And then again, I also believe that we have to do something proactively, because I don't believe anybody in this room was raised with a parent that said, if you disagree with somebody, go shoot them. Right? But that's what's seemingly happening, is people have disagreements and they resort to weapons to resolve them. And that is not the appropriate behavior in civilized society. And so I believe that what we also have to do, like I said, going back to working with those small nonprofit groups that work with children and mentor children. And it would be wonderful if everybody had a great home, but everybody doesn't. And so if we've got folks in the community that are willing to help them and mentor them and pour into them, then we need to help those smaller organizations do that so that we don't have the things that we're seeing now.
We need to implement, again, this is strict governance.
I agree.
It continues to go on and on and on.
I agree.
You're on the news. It's a dumb piece of hardware for some dumb unit picks it up.
Yep.
Starts shooting like crazy.
I agree.
That's what it is.
I agree, and I totally agree with you. It's a very hot, contentious issue in the General Assembly. I'll just wrap it up and say this to you as well. The difference between my candidate and myself is experience. I've worked for the city. I have been elected in the city council. I have worked in the General Assembly, and I have the experience at the legislative level to do what needs to be done. 11 senators are leaving the Senate. 31 House members are leaving the House. These are folks who have announced they are resigning or retiring. The rest of them got primaries, so they may or may not make it, okay? If they don't, that's more people gone. And so what we need in Norfolk at the table is someone who is ready on day one to be able to work on legislation, to have that has relationships with folks in the lobbying areas, in the nonprofit areas, in the business community, that can come together to put legislation forward. And I've worked with just about every leftover senator that's still left there now. I've worked with them one way or the other on legislation or in committees in the last 3 years. So the difference is that I have the experience to do this job, and I'm ready to do it on day one. And I would love the honor of being your senator.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay.
I'm up. Let me go first. All right, I'll go quick. A couple of things.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Angela. A couple of things I want to talk to y'all about here at Ward's Corner. I want to start with the fences and the median. I'll pass this around I have one printed picture. The fences at the median at Ward's Corner, we installed them in 2020. If you remember, we used to have fences in the medians. We also tried to grow plants, grass. We put 15 years ago, we put a pump system in with the sprinklers trying to get things to grow. It never would grow. It was always a dust bowl. So 2 years ago, back in 2020, we said, let's pave over that tiny little median and put the fences in. We did that. We spent $25,100 putting those fences in 2020. Since that time, that fences have almost continually been hit by cars, and we're almost continually spending money on replacing fences up there. Just to give you the history, in September of 2020, we spent $2,680 to fix the fence. In December of 21, we spent $3,182 to fix the fence. In March of 22, we spent $3,863 to fix the fence. Less than 1 month later, April 7th, we spent $2,556 to fix the fence. 1 month later, we spent $4,680 in May to fix the fence. Right now, you'll see in the picture going around, there are 9 fence panels missing. Okay, I don't have a quote yet, but I imagine it's going to be about $10,000 to fix those 9 panels that are missing from the fences. So my question for y'all, I'm not coming with a proposal. I truly want to bring you a question and see what your input is going to be before we spend another $10,000 fixing those fences. We're weighing the fences being there, which is supposed to reduce the amount of jaywalking, versus our tax dollars being continually spent fixing fences that are continually hit by cars. So the question to you is, and again, I'm not coming to you telling you one way or the other, should we take the fences down and stop spending money on them, potentially seeing an increase in jaywalking, or continue to spend your money on replacing the fences over and over? What I can tell you is that the money to fix that is going to blow the city's entire budget for fence fixing for this coming year.
Question.
Go ahead, right here.
What do other cities do with similar kind of intersections? Has there been a study on that? What do other?
I asked the Department of Transit, and they really said this is the best option that exists. Someone at another meeting that I asked the question at said, well, why don't we put a concrete wall there? And Transit's response was, unless you build it 6 feet tall, people are just going to hop right over it. The fences that we choose are somewhat anti-climbable, if you will.
Well, how come it's a problem for our intersection? There again, what do other
Cities,
do they just don't worry about it, or what?
It's not a unique problem. We have the same issue on St. Paul's downtown, where we have the fences with a very narrow median. The problem is a very, very narrow median. If we had a very wide median and the fence was in the middle, like we have closer to Granby High School, those fences are fine. There's a fence in the middle of the fences, middle of medians in front of Granby High School to reduce the students from jaywalking. They're fine because you have plenty of space between where the cars are traveling and where the fences are located. But if you think about the median at Ward's Corner is about 1 foot to 1.5 foot wide.
1.5 foot wide, yep.
So you've got a fence right there, and every car that's texting and driving or going by intoxicated, they're just continually hitting it. So that's the difference. Department of Transit, I asked them, I said, what are the better options? There really aren't. I'm sorry?
Can those drivers not be charged for it? I mean,
They
yes,
can if
you're
we
not-
catch them.
Yeah.
But, you know, you got drivers that are hitting and running, and so, yeah.
We don't have cameras at the intersection.
Yeah.
Martin, is the cost for replacing the fence for ordering more fence and replacing it? Because we can take fence down by the post office and move it up. Would we save money by doing that little by little until we decide what to
Just a
do?
little bit.
We can just move the fences, but you'll run out of fence pretty quick. Like I said, if you see in the picture going around,
Well, most of the
there
cost,
are 9 panels missing.
yeah, but most of the cost isn't in the fence, it's in the labor to install.
It's fence and labor. Yep.
Yeah, because
Absolutely.
I think I saw, was it $75 a linear foot for the fence?
I think that's
And the
right.
rest of it's all labor to, you know, put it in ground and make it stable.
Get rid of the fence, it's costing that much money. See, we're going broke.
And then the jaywalking solution. That's all that little bit crazy.
I'd like to
Well,
say,
I mean,
why not just
jaywalking
remove
part
the
of-
damage, remove the damage and, leave it to other until it's damaged.
That's one way to
I
look
know
at
this
it.
has gone up for the jaywalking, but considering the amount of panhandling that goes on up there too, it doesn't seem to be. Yeah. take the fence down. It's costing us that much money. It's not cheap.
Well, if we, you know, that's just gonna make room for panhandling, okay? Through that, okay? And my thing is I wanted to see it go on that little strip that's on Little Creek,
Yes.
where you got guys standing on this much curb and cars are going by them at 40 miles an hour. One of these days, there's gonna be a, yeah,
With no strip, just stand.
it's,
Take the fence down.
I
Take the fence down and build a wall.
I just,
Build a wall.
Yeah.
I wanted a wall, but I kind of build a wall, I hear you.
Jersey wall.
That's what I said.
All right, so it seems like there's a consensus of let's take the fence down. Let's see what happens over a couple of years.
We gotta build a wall, we gotta save some money.
There you
Right
go.
now-
We do have another wall to build.
Right now, though, the one area, okay, out of the Woods Corner intersection is the east-west portion of Little Creek that is west of Granby, between the two drugstores. Right now, there's more people crossing in between those two during the course of the day.
Right.
Yeah, they're going to 7-Eleven.
They're going to 7-Eleven, but they're also going from Walgreens to Rite Aid, Walgreens to Rite
They
Aid.
don't use it.
You know, oh, they don't have my brand of beer here, I'm gonna go across the street.
Oh, like, I saw one.
So-
It gets down to people.
I know, we can't fix stupid, but you're right, you're right.
Not on the books anymore.
We don't have enough police to do that anyway.
All right, second thing I wanted to ask you about, I'm gonna pass these around. I have 4, so I'll pass one this way.
What about the panhandling? I mean, can that be legislated out?
It cannot. The Supreme Court has ruled that panhandling is A-OK, so we cannot stop it.
Don't encourage it. Yeah.
We've tried that.
Yeah, again, it's people. Train people.
We're trying that, yeah. The signs that we put up, if you've noticed, have been damaged, modified, yes.
He's got 5 minutes, but.
Yeah.
So, the panhandling signs came up with the Ghent task force a couple days ago about how most of those people who are panhandling aren't actually homeless in the public services. So those signs are a little misleading because it makes it look like the city's taking care of people with these public services, when in fact those people are just doing this to
make money.
Yeah, they have different parts of the city, different days, it's like the,
The experienced police officers will tell you that they're making a good living.
Yes, definitely.
Or actually.
All right, I'm on a time limit. I just passed around a design. I've had concerns. I've heard concerns about the intersection of Warren and Newport because of the positioning of the sidewalks and the stop bars. It's very dangerous for pedestrians, kids who are walking along the sidewalks. So Department of Transit came up with this design. They said that the northwest corner is the corner that really will fix the problem on this design. The rest of the corners, they said, well, if we're going to redesign one corner, we might as well show what the rest should look like. They've got money to go ahead and fix the northwest corner to make it safe for people who are crossing. They're going to northwest. Did I get it wrong? Northeast? This one right here. Yeah, northwest. This one right here.
Oh, I thought this, no, this is north. This is north. So this is northeast. This is northwest, southeast, southeast.
This is the corner right here. Top left. Top left is what we're talking about. All right.
Well, top left, but that's not.
Please take a look at this. If anyone has any concerns, let me know. If you don't, I'm going to A-OK Transit to go ahead and work on fixing that. And then the rest of the corners will be put in a work plan for when funding is available.
We're trying to make that whole area safer.
Yeah.
What streets were you talking about?
This is Warren and Newport.
Okay.
We are slowly incorporating the Watermark and/or apartments into the Ward's Corner Civic League area. So
yes.
We are taking this measure on as something that's partially our responsibility. Okay, they have partial responsibility there, being a company. You know, as far as their security issues, that's something else altogether. Right. But this is definitely something that's fixable.
And their neighbors.
And their neighbors, exactly.
Yes.
On the same note of that area moving up to where the stop sign is, who is responsible for trimming back those trees? Because I'm seeing
That's them.
a massive increase of guys just walking down, coming south on Newport, along the stop sign, is it obscured by the trees now? That's the HOA owns it?
If it's a street tree, I'll just get the city out there to
That's
do
what-
it.
it's on
though.
that tree.
Is it on the easement? If it's on the easement, it's ours.
It's outside the sidewalk,
It's
on
the city.
boarding between sidewalk and the actual street itself.
All right, before I leave, let's look at Google Maps. Let me get the
I
exact
actually have a
location.
picture, so if I can actually-
Send it to me. That'd be great. Yeah, perfect. Perfect. I'll get that taken care of. All right, those are the main things I wanted to get in before we had to go. I'll let, anyone have any questions before I let Adele go?
But one of the things that we need to look in that area also too,
Yep.
and we talked about it, they have the stop sign issue, and it was raised that, oh, well, the distance is too short between one street to the other. It's not. It's identical to what we have in my own neighborhood.
Is
over
it?
here. Yeah, it really is. It really is. So it, if anything, and we might even need to talk about speed humps there like they have in Lakewood.
So speed humps are a good question. We are putting together a kind of information packet to hand out because we're getting more and more requests for speed humps because we have less and less police officers out giving
Right.
tickets. So communications and the Department of Transit are working right now on a informational packet to give out, say which roads are best based on the amount of traffic that they have to have speed humps versus speed bumps versus speed tables, and then what the process is going to be to request those. The tables over there in Lafayette, I think they cost 60 grand to put in, so they're not cheap. So we have to come up with a process.
4 of them. We're talking maybe
So,
2, right?
Well, you're asking for 2, but every other civic league is asking for 2, and so it quickly becomes a budget buster. So we got to figure out a
The
process.
next thing you know, our resiliency walls are threatened.
Right, right. Yes, Clem.
Okay, you're still recruiting businesses, right?
I tried to, yes, sir.
I guess some family eateries here. Going out to Virginia.
Get your friends to open stuff up.
Or a good family restaurant really quick.
We've got more restaurants now than we did 5 and 10 years ago. So the trend is going in the right direction. And then the most recent one that's they haven't applied yet, but I expect they're going to apply in the next few weeks is Panera Bread is looking at putting a location over in front of Southern Shopping Center.
There you go.
So they're going to be applying
There
pretty
you
soon.
go.
That's still be waiting.
So it'll be coming up to Southern Shopping Center. Okay, he's done.
Martin's buffet is closed already.
Did they close already?
Yeah.
Okay, bummer.
The old K&W.
Right. I went up there once. It was very nice when they were open.
So you get some other restaurant in there. There's an auction sign on the
Okay.
The city doesn't build businesses.
We try to attract them. We
Try to
do.
attract them, that's all. All right, Del, you're up.
Well, there's a black white coffee shop.
It's under construction.
How'd they come up with that name?
That's a national chain. It's a national chain. Okay, we have Adale Martin here.
Hi, I'm gonna be really quick. I passed around our strategic plan. We have them printed out for you. This is the strategic plan that our administration has been working on for a while. We passed it a few months ago, and it is based on these 5 areas. Of course, student excellence, workforce development, retention and attraction, making sure that we have the right resources that our students need, as well as our staff, and community outreach, which has been a hot topic lately, and safety and climate. So just wanted to make sure you had this in hand. This is our guide for everything that we do. It goes back to this, and we have a monitoring calendar, so we'll continue to monitor the progress as we move closer to our goals. This is the budget that we sent into our city council. I know we talked about this a bit when Dr. Gabriel was in here, and this ties right into this to make sure that we are successful in our endeavor to improve these 5 areas of our school system. Real quick, we have a couple of hot topics that are coming up on our Wednesday's agenda. So it'll be this Wednesday at our business meeting. We'll be voting on the family life education proposal. It's been in the news. We have to review this every 7 years, and I will be voting for it. And we also have an unsolicited proposal for Maury High School. I can't go into the details of that. That's still and it's being discussed in executive session. But we will be voting on whether to accept that proposal or open it up to a formal process and put it out to bid.
Is that the proposal to rebuild it?
to tear it down, but not to rebuild it. But I can't go into too much detail about that. But it would be on the same
You're
campus.
voting for, is that in here, the other proposal, the family?
Oh, so neither of them are in here. This is our strategic plan.
Where do we see the other?
The family life education, you can go on our website and you can read it. It's a it's a 158 page document. It's pretty lengthy, but it's been up there for quite a while, so you can go on and read it if you like.
What site? Norfolk Public Schools?
Norfolk Public Schools, yes, and I would suggest instead of hunting for it, just put family life education in the search bar, and it should take you right to it. And if you don't see it, then let me know.
Is VOTEC under public schools?
Is what under public
VOTEC.
schools? Vocational, yes, yes.
I think you should push that more. A lot of young men should be interested in that instead of staying out of school.
Well, our VOTEC is in almost every program we have. So now some of our like mechanical, my son's taking mechanical drawing. He's at Granby in the IB program. So VOTEC is not necessarily going to where the machines are at the VOTEC center, as they are integrated into, I mean, a lot of it's computer based, and they can do both, where they can learn on in a classroom in their own school, or independently through through a computer program, because the tech side is really very much computer based these days. But I just went to the nursing graduation a couple weeks ago over at Norfolk Technical Center. We look at having the Norfolk Tech NTC as a hub for some of the programs that are already in our high schools. And actually VOTEC starts at 5th grade now. That started a few years ago. So we're really trying to make sure that, and actually I had this discussion last year at graduation, every valedictorian that graduates, is going through a traditional academic program, but also has taken VOTEC courses. So it's very much integrated to the point you probably you don't notice that this might be VOTEC, but it's just very much integrated into the curriculum throughout the system. And we're going to keep growing it. And our VOTEC, especially our clubs like DECA, the business club, and so on. So in our culinary arts programs, they're winning lots of awards and getting amazing grants. So we're really proud of them, and we probably should be marketing that more. Anyone else? Okay, thanks.
Okay, yeah, that's that, yeah, that's.
Yeah, I passed it out.
Okay, thank
Do
you.
you want extra?
Oh, no, that's okay. Anybody wants one, see Adele before she leaves. So, do we have any new business or anything anybody else would like to bring up? We've got 3 minutes to bring it up. That's my level of tolerance.
Ice
I have a
cream
question
social.
that shouldn't take more than-
Go ahead.
Are they still planning on, does it still look like they're gonna be putting, a target in? And, or is that, okay, they're laughing.
I've been
asked not to answer that question anymore.
Okay, where the Farm Fresh was, is that the Canadian company, is that moving anywhere?
Not at the moment. I can give an update on the Midtown Shopping Center, which is the white building with the blue awnings where the Chipotle is. That is still for sale. It's still in the market. They did reduce their price, as they should have. I still think it's significantly overpriced. I'm sorry?
What's it at now?
I don't recall off the top of my head.
So that property is still for sale?
It's still for sale. It's still in horrible condition, yes.
Yeah, wasn't there an idea of maybe building apartments there?
There was a long, long time ago. We'll see who buys it. I mean, right now, Chipotle is there and they have a very lengthy lease. So anything that happens there that would be involved in tearing it down or rebuilding it would require them having to be bought out, moved, something. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, if all that stuff did happen, I think they're pretty busy.
The Ward's Corner plan, it would be really awesome if somebody would even consider it.
Yeah, indeed.
But they are doing the Chipotle thing. Is that a go?
That is, as far as I know, a go at this point, yes.
The apartments are still going to default.
I couldn't hear you,
The
Clem.
apartments are still going to default.
Yes.
To steal two of your last minute check.
The next meeting is actually the ice cream
I was gonna
social.
let you, I was gonna let you
Yeah.
do you that. thing.
Okay, well, I didn't want to run out of time.
That's okay.
So that's June 12th at 6:30. It's at the North Shore Playground. Anybody who wants to help out with that, volunteer, let me know. We're gonna be here, of course, too. So, that would be awesome. And then don't forget to join our Facebook group as well, if you're on Facebook. It's pretty easy to find. It's called Ward's Corner Civic League.
Yes, please, sign up for our Facebook page on Ward's Corner, for Ward's Corner. If that's it, I call this meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Good job.
Again, the ice cream social on June 12th, Monday evening. And our next, that will be the last meeting throughout the summer. And then we will resume on September 18th, right here, same time, same place. Thank you. If you'd all pick up your chairs and bring them to the back, that'd be really great. Thank you.